Hello and welcome back to my channel. So late April this year, 2026, myself and a good friend of mine, Darren, decided to take on the Cape Wrath Trail. We set off from Fort William, boarding the ferry on a very hot summer's morning, and 16 amazing days later, we got to the Cape Wrath Lighthouse. It was a fantastic journey, but it was challenging physically, mentally, and right on the last day, it got quite emotional. So I thought I'd do a loadout video of everything that I took, from the tent that I used, the sleep system, the clothes that I wore. I can even show you the food that I took as well. And then at the end of the video, if I can pass on some tips, bit of advice if you're thinking of doing the Cape Wrath Trail yourself, and we'll round it off with my final thoughts of the Cape Wrath Trail and the question that a lot of you have been asking me, would I do the Cape Wrath Trail again? So let's get into it. This is my Cape Wrath Trail loadout. Okay, so the rucksack that I use needs no introduction. It's the Osprey Exos, and this is the 48 litre. I just about got everything in it. It was actually loaded up to the hilt. The top of it was up here on the first few days, and I could only just about close it. The main weight and the main bulk was the food that I took, so I knew that over the coming days that the weight would go down and the bulk would go down as well, until we got to Kinloch Heugh, where we met up with our food resupply parcel. The rucksack coped quite well with the extra weight. Osprey recommend you don't exceed 18 kilos. The morning that we left for Fort William, I was just shy of 18 kilos, so it was borderline. The rucksack is almost perfect. I just wish Osprey would put more padding in the shoulder straps and continue the padding from the top all the way down. But I do like the suspension back system. It's typically Osprey quality, so it is well made. And I have had this rucksack a few years now, and it has been on many journeys and adventures with me. So we'll get everything out, we'll go through everything. We'll get the trekking poles out. Trekking poles I took for two reasons. First reason is because I needed trekking poles, and I would advise taking them on the Cape Wrath Trail because there is a lot of elevation, river crossings, etc, etc. Most people we saw were using trekking poles. This is just a random cover that I used for when I was travelling on the train, just to cover them up. Had these a while. These are Leki Makalu, and these are designed for mountain use, carrying a lot of weight. The other reason I took them for is I needed them for my tent, which I'll show you in a bit. I did take the rainproof cover, but a lot of the time I forgot to put it on, or the rain would catch us out. We didn't get any rain until I think it was day 7 or day 8 when we were heading down into Strathcarron, and I think that's the first time I actually put the rain cover on. So it's just your typical Osprey rain cover. Xlite seats pad, which to be honest I didn't really use. I think I might have used it once or twice. We were fairly conscious of ticks being on the grass and on the ground, so when we did sit down, we either sat on chairs outside Bothies or we sat on rocks, boulders, etc. So I probably only used it a couple of times. Water bottles, I took 2. I had one in the side, and I had one in my water bottle pouch. These are active pH water bottles. You buy them on Amazon, or you can get them in Holland and Barrett. The reason I like them is they fit in your pouch quite nicely. They fit in the side of the rucksack quite nicely. I took 2 because when I stopped for water, which is something there's plenty of on the Cape Wrath, I would fill both up, drink one, put that back in my rucksack as empty, and then fill that one up and put that in my pouch, and then carry on walking and drinking with that. And then I would put some hydration tablets in. The 600ml bottles, so when they're both full, it's like 1.2 kilos. So at the start of the walk, I was literally just carrying one just to reduce the weight a bit. I like them because it's a flip top, so you're putting your hands in whatever on these walks, opening gates and stuff. so when you open it you're not actually touching the top of the bottle. That's what they look like when they've been on the Cape Wrath. That's what they look like when they're new. I did, the two that I took, one of them split at the Oikul Hotel when I got there, so it just got binned, and then I continued with one. So we'll get into the brain part. Gloves, I took a few pairs. This was a last minute decision that I took, which are just some Decathlon B-Twin cycling gloves. These were great with the poles. I wore these most days. Again, you're putting your hands on rocks and stuff, scrambling up things. So they just kind of kept your hands clean. Every now and again something would land on your hand and you would flick it off. No idea what they were. Horse flies, midges, whatever. And these work really well. They've actually faded. That's how much sun we got. So they've actually faded. Midweight glove, just a windbreaker glove, not waterproof, just a midweight. Wore these a couple of times in the morning. Once we got going, got warmed up, took them off back in the rucksack. Innovate waterproof mitts. I only actually wore these once, which was day 12 when we were going from Inchnadanth Lodge to Glencool Bothy, and they did wet out eventually. But yeah, they worked for so long and then they just wetted out. Very lightweight, they're only about 35 grams. But yeah, like I say, they did wet out. Buff, didn't use it at all. It just sat in the rucksack for the whole time. Windbreaker, I would advise taking a windbreaker. Did wear this a lot, and this is one of my favourite items. It's the Montane Alpine Edge. It's discontinued now. I have had this for quite a while. Fits over your baseball cap with a bit of wire at the top. Very lightweight, cuts the wind out. Brilliant jacket. Waterproofs, you're definitely going to need them, although we didn't wear them that much. These are the Berghaus Pack Light trousers with the full length zips. Didn't wear them for, I think, like I say, it was about day 7, day 8 when we went to Strathcarron. And then waterproof jacket. This is a Berghaus Storm jacket, I think it's called. I've had it years. It is discontinued. But yeah, you are going to need a lightweight waterproof jacket on the Cape Wrath. So that's everything in the brain on the outside. Go through the little bits and bobs that I put in the top. So hydration tablets, High 50. I took a tube and sent myself a tube in my resupply box. Leuco tape, every hiker's best friend. So most mornings or every other morning, that was a full roll when I set off. So I've used about half of it. I would tape my Achilles tendons up, my ankles. I damaged my Achilles tendon on my right ankle a few years back, and this just tapes it up and gives it a bit of support, and it doesn't seem to bother me. Midge net, don't go to Scotland without one, but I never actually used it because we didn't get any midges, or not to the extent I needed to wear a net. Couple of pegs which came in handy for drying socks out because your feet are going to get wet. Sun cream. Yep, in Scotland I took sun cream and did use it for the first 7 days. This is a Decathlon, quite high factor one. I think it's like a skiing one. If you go skiing, in a stick, you just put it on so you're not getting it on your hands. Poop kits. You are going to be pooing outside, although I didn't. I'll talk more about that later. So in here I've got hand sanitizer, which also helps get a fire started in a bothy. Deuce of spades for digging your hole. And I took some wilderness wipes, which are Sea to Summer, and these have got aloe vera in them, so they're a little bit more soothing on your bum. But as you can see, I didn't use any. I'll tell you why later on. So that was my poop kit that I never used. Midge spray, only used this a couple of times. The only time we got midges was when we were leaving a chilly Bothy. That was the only time we got midges. I don't know why, but we never really saw them again after that. After we left the chilly Bothy. First aid kit, random first aid bits in here, plus stuff, emergency stuff. So spare lighter, Sawyer gaskets for my water filter. There's a couple of repair patches for my mat. Just bits and bobs like that. Ibuprofen, paracetamol, Savlon, a bit of Dyneema cord. Just sort of random bits. Didn't use anything out of here, I don't think. There's some blister plasters in there as well, but apart from a few paracetamol, I don't think I actually used anything out of that. And then this is a little packet of citronella cones. So you light them and they burn slowly. Used them a couple of times. Like I say, a chilly Bothy at night and in the morning we got midges. And then I think I lit a couple at Kinloch Horn when we camped by the river there. So you just sort of light them and they burn off slowly. Because of the time of year, midges aren't out until around about mid-May, so that's why we planned the trip around the midges. So that's everything in there. Sponge in a bag for wiping the tent down in the morning. Because we were camping a lot in grass, we did get condensation. Tent pegs, I took MSR groundhogs. The ground is pretty tough in Scotland, so half the time I was bashing them in. I think I took 18, I needed 16 and I took 2 spares. And that was with the extra guy lines that I'll show you in a minute as well. I was going to take my Easterns, but I thought if I bend them, MSR ones are cheaper to replace. Sawyer squeeze pouches, I took 2 of them. And they were handy when we stayed at campsites or in a Bothy. You could just go out to the stream, or burn as they're known in Scotland, fill them up, bring them back in or to your tent. So that's everything out of there. So we'll get into the rucksack. So the first thing out is my tent, and the tent that I took was the Xmid 1 solid inner. I love this tent. It's just a simple tent to use. When you've hiked 15-20 miles, all you want to do is just put your tent up quickly, lay it out 4 corners, trekking poles in, and then you can put the guy lines out later, or put them out there and then if it's windy. 2 extra guy lines on carabiners, which I did use on a few nights because the wind did pick up. But the tent coped really, really well. The worst night we had 2 worst nights. One was at Ullapool on a campsite. It was very, very windy that night. And then the second night was when we camped in front of the Arkle mountain. That was probably the worst night, to be fair. I actually thought I was going to blow away with me inside the tent. But no, it stood it and it stayed up. I actually put the tent in a dry bag, and I took the tent's green bag, and if the outer tent was really wet, then I would unclip it and put the inner in that bag and then the outer in a dry bag. This was just a little handy bag to get to with various bits and bobs in. So I had anchor plug for when we went in cafes or on campsites, a couple of charge leads, wallet. So in here I had a debit card, driving license, so I could show some ID, which I never had to, and I took £100 in cash. And the only place that insisted on cash, or was cash only, was the ferry from Cape Wrath Lighthouse to take you over to Durness. That was the only, everywhere else accepted card. So I did spend the cash just to get rid of it, but most places just accepted card or payment on your phone. The map's in here as well, so if you are thinking of doing the Cape Wrath, it comes in 2 Harvey maps. So you've got a south and a north, and these were invaluable. They really were, to navigate across the Scottish Highlands. I also made notes before I went, so I just kind of wrote down notes for different days. So where we were staying at the end of that day, the mileage we were doing, if there was anywhere on that day to get food, that type of thing, just to remind me, because you're on the trail for quite a long time, so you kind of forget from one day to the next. So you could just kind of plan ahead, knowing where you were going over the next few days. And that's a little waterproof bag, that. Sometimes it lived in the top of the rucksack, the brain, sometimes I put it inside, but it was just handy to have. The food. So this is what I bought back. This one's empty. These bags are from Decathlon, and they're D-shaped packing bags. They're very cheap money. I think they're only about £7 or £8 for the two. I had my dried meals in one and my snacks, daily snacks, in the other one. Obviously I've eaten all my snacks, but I also took with me a cosy that I put my dried meal in to keep it warm while it rehydrates. I took a bowl, a Sea to Summit bowl, which I had my porridge in on a few mornings. It'll make sense when you see the food. And then a Toaks long-handled spoon that we've all pretty much got. And get it out of the bag. That was the only cutlery that I took, just a spoon. So that was my snack bag. And then this is the dried meal bag, and I did bring back some dried meals. So what I'll do is pass you back to past me, Cape Wrath Trail, and we'll have a look at the food that I took. Right, hello, so welcome to pre-Cape Wrath Trail me. Obviously I haven't done the walk yet, but I thought I'd talk you through some of the food that I'm going to be taking along with me. We're going to be doing the walk over 16 days, so I've got 8 days worth of food that I'm going to be carrying from the start, and then I'm going to be sending myself 8 days worth of food, which hopefully I'll pick up from Kinlochhew Post Office on day 9. Obviously this is a bit of a personal one because we've all got different dietary needs. What's going to work for me might not work for you. It depends on your budget, depends on how much food you want to carry, how much extra weight you want to carry from the start. Depends on how self-sufficient you want to be. We will be buying food along the way. It obviously supports the local community and stuff like that, so any shops and cafes, pubs that we come across, we will be calling in for food. Dried meals are great, but after a few days of them, you do get quite fed up with them. So yeah, we will be buying food as we go. So each bag is numbered. This is day 11. Will I make it to day 11? And each bag has basically got the same in, but with a slight variety. So either a different brand or a different flavour, something like that. Not really a breakfast person, but obviously I've got to eat something. So Nature Valley bar in the morning, a couple of coffees, 2-in-1 sachets. 2 things that I generally crave on these walks. One is salt, so I always take a little bag of peanuts, and the other thing is sugar, so I'll be taking a couple of little bags of Haribos. A couple of brunch bars. These are like an oatmeal type bar. This is a chocolate chip one. I've got raisin and peanut, I think. Blue ribbon bar, which is just a little wafer biscuit bar. And then something to graze on through the day as well is Billabong beef jerky. I haven't got these in every single bag for every day. I think these are in like every 3rd day. And then protein bar, which I usually sort of save for the end of the day. So chocolate protein bar, I'll kind of have that as like a pudding at the end of the day, and then a caramel latte. So I've got, like I say, 8 of them that I'll be taking, and 8 that I'll be sending. So that'll cover me for the 16 days. I'm going to be taking 7 dried meals, so not 8. Like I say, we are hoping to call in places and get food. So I might end up bringing some of these back, I don't know. Good selection, different brands, different flavours. When you've hiked 20 odd miles in pouring rain, you get to camp. It's just nice to have a good selection. I'll be taking some of these pasta mug shots. I've got 3 of these, that's all. I took these on the coast to coast, and a couple of nights I actually had them as my main meal because I wasn't that hungry. If I'd stopped sort of dinner time-ish and had something to eat, by the time I got to camp I didn't really fancy a dried meal, so I just had a couple of these. Rip the top off, fill them up with hot water. You got yourself a nice little quick and easy meal. Like I say, I'm not a breakfast person, but I am going to be taking some porridge. So I'm going to take 4 and then send myself 4 as well. I'm not going to take them in these pots because they obviously take up too much room, but I'm going to put them into some little Ziploc bags. I've got a little collapsible bowl, pour it into that, add some hot water, and sort of randomly over the 8 days I'll have porridge on 4 of the mornings. Vitamins is something I always take, so I'm going to be taking vitamin supplements. In here I've got magnesium, turmeric, a multivitamin and vitamin C. It's actually a vitamin D bottle, but that's what's in there. Water's something I won't have to be carrying because there's plenty in Scotland, but I have got the High 5 hydration tablets, so I'll be taking 20 with me and sending myself 20. I've got 2 600ml water bottles, so I'll be splitting a tablet in half and putting half in each bottle. 20 should last me for 8 days. If not, I'll buy some more. So that's basically the food that I'm going to be taking with me. Like I say, it's very personal. It depends on budget, dietary needs, that kind of stuff, whether you want to be carrying the extra weight. Each one, dried meals and the snack bags all together, this is coming in at 4 kilos or just under 4 kilos, and I'll be sending myself another 4 kilos. Obviously it's quite a bit of weight to carry in food. I was going to cut it down to sort of 5 days worth of food, but when we get to Shield Bridge, depending on what time we get there, the shops could be shut, or they might not have what I want, or I just thought I'll carry it. I'm used to carrying it. I carried it on the coast to coast. I've carried it on other trips that I've done, other long distance hikes that I've done. The Cape Wrath is really remote, so it's the most remotest one that I've done up to date. I don't want to run out of food and go hungry, so I may end up bringing some of it back. I may end up posting some of it back to myself. I don't know. Did it work? Did I take too much food, or did I not take enough? I'll pass you back to future me and we'll find out. Okay, so did the food work that I took? Well, yes and no. The snacks worked a treat. I had a snack bag for each day, but what I found was, because I was burning a lot more calories than I was expecting to, I actually, by day 4, I was dipping into bag 5. It wasn't really a major problem because there are places on the trail where you can pick up more food. The reason for doing the snack bags was so I knew what food I had for each day. It was also food that I like and I bought in advance, but there's plenty of places on the trail where you can pick up. It might not be the brand or the flavour that you want, or it might not be the price you want to pay, because obviously the price will be a little bit more inflated, but it wasn't a problem. We were able to pick up extra little bits of food. By the time we got to day 14 or day 15, I was pretty much out of snacks, but there's a spar shop in Kinlochbervie and we went into there and I just replenished my snacks. just for that last bit of the day. And then the day that we walked to the lighthouse, it was only 8 mile and we didn't really sort of stop. So snacks wise, I kind of just about got to the finish with the snacks that I took. Dried meals, we knew that we would probably come back with some dried meals, but we took dried meals for each day, or we took 14 days worth of dried meals. But again, we knew that we would get food, or we presumed we would get food at places like Shieldbridge, Strathcarron, Ullapool was a definite, you get food there. We stayed at the Oikle Hotel, so we had tea there. There was plenty of places, but there was some places they weren't guaranteed to be open, or by the time we got there, they wouldn't be open. So I did come back with, I think there's 5 dried meals, which will just go on and go on another trip, and a custard apple crunch that I've had for quite a few years now. And this has actually been on the coast to coast, the West Highland Way, the Dales Way, the Cumbria Way, and it's now done the Cape Wrath. One day I will eat it. But yeah, it didn't get eaten again. So that was the food. Okay, wash kit. This was a bit of a luxury item, not the contents but the bag. It's a Lifeventure bag, toiletry bag. It just keeps everything organised, especially when you're on a campsite. It's got the little hook so you can sort of hang it up and everything's there. So quickly go through the contents of bits and bobs. Obviously it's down to what you want to take yourself. So I took a razor and a small shaving foam, which a lot of people took the mickey out of me for, but I don't really like having a beard. I took a normal toothbrush. I wasn't into cutting toothbrushes down to save nothing. Small toothpaste. I sent myself one and took one from the start. This was the second one, so I did use like one and a bit. Gossamer Gear towel, which I only used when I was at campsites or when I was at Oikle Hotel. And then in the morning I just used to hang it off my rucksack to dry out. Because you're wild camping a lot on the trail, obviously you can't get a shower. So I took 2 packets of wet ones, and this is what I've brought back. So that's nearly full, that's probably half empty. I took 2 packets and I sent myself 2 packets, and I've come back with a pack and a half. They are biodegradable, but I bought them out. I didn't bury them. I put them in my rubbish, and they came out with me. This is all-purpose Lifeventure soap. Again, I took one, and this is the one I sent myself. So you can see I've only used about a quarter of that one. Pack of tissues, a couple of lip balms, a standard lip balm, and I took a Vaseline one, just in case I needed to put Vaseline somewhere to stop chafing, i.e. butt cheeks or somewhere like that, but I didn't end up using it. Continuing on with butt cheeks, I took some Sudocrem, because I have seen people on Cape Wrath who have ended up with a sore butt because you are pooing in the wilderness, and if you don't clean yourself properly you'll get a sore bum. Small Nivea cream, because you are getting a bit weathered because you're out all day long. Earplugs, took 2 pairs, which came in handy, especially if you go camping with my mate who snores a lot. And trench foot cream. This is something I've never used, and it was absolutely brilliant. I took one with me and sent myself another one, and it just lasted for the 8 days. One lasted for 8 days, and then I used the second one. You apply it every morning, and it just puts a coating, because your feet are wet all the time, it just puts a coating on your feet and stops your feet cracking and stuff, and stops getting blisters. Really impressed with that. I didn't get one single blister. Was it because of the cream? I don't know, but if you're doing something like the Cape Wrath where your feet are constantly wet, you need to put something on to stop you getting blisters, and then stop those blisters getting infected. And we do know of one person that we sadly didn't finish the trail because of infected blisters. So that was my wash kit. That's electronics. I'll show you that in a second. That's the dry bag that I put my tent in. The outer part of the tent if it was wet. Stove. I only boiled water to have a brew and to make my dried meal, so I wasn't actually like cooking anything. So I had my brew, Sea to Summit mug, which I'm all sure everyone's got one. I took my Toaks 550 pot, titanium pot. This is the lightweight one, and it is really lightweight. I think it's 73 grams, I think it is. Sponge. These are little magnetic feet that go on the bottom of the gas canister to stop it falling over. Little tiny Swiss Army knife. Don't think I actually used it, but just a little handy knife to have. A towel to dry my pot out and to stop everything rattling around. Scottish Bic lighter when in Scotland, and my little stove. This is the Fire Maple FMS 300T. Sounds like a vacuum cleaner or something, but I was really impressed with this little stove. I bought it last year for the West Island Way, and it's a cracking little stove. It weighs about 40 grams, I think it is. And it's just a tiny little thing. It is quite noisy, but it was really, really good on gas. Darren took his MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe, which is a lot more expensive stove, and he used roughly about the same amount of gas as I did. And it just worked. It never let me down at all. It was really, really good stove. I was really impressed with that. Gas-wise, I set off with a medium canister, and that lasted us until we got to Ullapool. When we got to Ullapool, there was a little bit left in it, probably enough for another morning or another day maybe. But we ended up ditching the canisters at Ullapool campsite, and there's a camping shop in Ullapool, so we both picked up a small 100-gram gas canister. And this is the one I actually bought. I don't know why I bought it back, because there's only a tiny bit left in it. This just about lasted me to the finish. I was planning on staying at the Bothy, Kiaviog Bothy, and I think if I had stayed there, I'd have probably run out of gas. So bear that in mind if you're planning on staying a little bit longer. So that was the cook set that I took, and gas. Down jacket, you're definitely going to need a down jacket. It did get cold at night, even though it was May. We had snow on the mountains all the time. The bags, by the way, are Alpkit dry bags, which I bought as a set years ago. We did have snow on the mountains throughout the entire walk. And when you're camping in the valleys, or the glens as they're known in Scotland, the cold air was just blowing down, and because the Durston Xmid's obviously not a 4-season tent, it was quite drafty and cold. So there was a few nights where I actually slept in the down jacket because I was a little bit cold. This is an Alpkit one, Fillo, I think it's called. It's only 550 fill, but it only weighs 300 grams. Quite a lightweight jacket, and it's been on many trips with me. But yeah, I used to wear this at night. Sometimes I wore it through the night in my sleeping bag, and then I'd put it on in the morning. And if I needed to, I could have hiked in it if it was really, really cold. But I didn't need to. Sleep mat was Thermarest X-Lite, and this is the wide version. I won't get it out of the bag because I'm pretty sure you've all seen a Thermarest X-Lite. I did take the inflation bag with me, but I'll show you in a minute with my electronics. I did take the flex tail pump. I took the bag with me in case the pump failed or the battery went flat, but as it was, I didn't end up having to use this. This works well as I expected. The only time it became a problem was one of the Bothies we stayed in, and it was the one that I could never pronounce, so I'll put it on screen now. I'll put it on screen. And the platforms, the sort of the bed bits where you lie on, they were only about this wide, and because my mat's wide, it won't fit on it, so I ended up sleeping on the floor that night. Put that there. Right, let's do electronics. So obviously I filmed the trip, so I needed more power, more batteries for the camera, and then obviously batteries to charge the camera batteries. So I filmed the trip with my DJI Action 4 camera. I've had it for a couple of years. It's got the wind buff on it, and it's connected to a UU rig selfie stick, which turns into a tripod as well. So it's really quick and easy to get like the walk by shots and stuff. Turn around, just go and get your camera, and then you can have it as a selfie stick when you're sort of walking along. Really good camera, very simple to use. Darren filmed the trip as well, and he's got the one above this, the 5. There is a 6 out now, but there's nothing wrong with this. It films really well. I don't need to replace it. If it ever fails on me, then obviously I'll get the 6, or you know, if there's a 7 comes out. But yeah, great camera. So that's what I filmed the entire trip on. I took 2 selfie sticks, that one and then a mini one, and I only used this once, I think, when I was in Ullapool and we went for fish and chips, and I was able to screw the camera on it and then just put it in my pocket and walk around Ullapool. That was my plan for taking it, but like I say, I only used it the once. So electronics, like I say, flex tail pump. This lasted for about 5 to 6 inflations before it started to die. I didn't use the light on it because it didn't go dark till about 10 o'clock, and by then we were asleep. So because obviously you're up early and walking quite a lot. So I took the flex tail pump, worked fine, didn't let me down. Like I say, it lasted 5 or 6 days. Little bag of electronic bits and bobs. So in here I've got my head torch, which is the Arctic Core Petzl 450, I think it is. It's got the rechargeable battery in it. I did use it, but I only tended to use it when we was in Bothies, because the Bothies, obviously there's no lights in them, so they do go darker earlier in there than if you was outside in your tent. But it did get used. Charge cables, spare bits and bobs for the camera in case one of them snapped. A spare elastic thing because I had the camera sort of on me thing. Watch strap, probably packing my fears with that one, but there you go. Spare lens for the camera. The camera did fall over quite violently on the coast to coast last year when I did that walk, and it cracked the lens, and luckily I had a spare with me, so I took a spare one. It didn't happen again, and I've still got a spare for it now. Random charge cables, and I also took my headphones because when I get to camp, to save room on the storage card, on the SD cards, I usually go through the footage. So if I'm on a campsite or something, I'll put the headphones in and I'll just play back the footage that I've done from the day, and anything that's not worked or it's a rubbish clip, I'll just sort of delete it. camera light that I did use quite a bit, to be fair, in the tent and in the Bothies and even in Oikle Hotel, to light things up when I was doing map time and what have you. That's just a cheap Ulancy one, rechargeable one. This is my little DJI mic, so I've got the receiver plugged into the camera now that I'm using, and I'm wearing the mic now, which is there. This did let me down. It works via Bluetooth and receiver, so the receiver's plugged into the camera now, which you can hear me now, but you can link it to the camera via Bluetooth. Whenever I was in the Bothie filming, it was losing Bluetooth signal, don't know why, and I've never got to the bottom of it. So DJI Mic Mini, yeah, it did let me down a couple of times, and I had to redo the clip, which was a bit of a pain, because it kept like cutting out, so I was talking and you couldn't hear what I was saying. So battery packs, I took 3, which might sound excessive, but there's not many places to charge your packs up, and I didn't want to take a massive pack that would take overnight to charge, like a 25,000 or 30,000 milliamp. So I thought I'll take 3 10,000 milliamp ones. These are little Alpkit pouches, just to keep the batteries warm at night. So I took 2 Nightcore battery packs, which are 10,000 milliamp each. These have also got a low charge mode on them, so whenever I charge my watch, I put them in low charge mode. And then I took a cheap Inu one. These are quite cheap, they're only about 10 or 15 pound. The idea of taking this was obviously to have 30,000 milliamp of power, but I thought if I've got to leave it on charge at a campsite or in a cafe, a pub, wherever I could plug in and just leave it and not see it, if it did go missing, it wasn't the end of the world. Whereas if a 60 pound Nightcore one went missing, I would be a bit, you know, fed up. So that's why I took 3. And then camera batteries, I took 4, so one in the camera, and then 3 in the charge case. For those that are going to film SD card wise, I took 2 128 gigabyte SD cards and a 256 one. I got roughly 11 days on the 256 one, and then I swapped over to the 128 one, and that lasted for the entire trip. So I came back with a spare 128, but I just took that as a spare because sometimes SD cards go funny for no reason. Clothes, didn't take much in the way of clothes. So socks is quite a big one on the Cape Wrath. So I took a pair of sealskin waterproof socks, and I did wear these quite a lot actually. Even when it was dry, even in hot sunny weather, the ground was still boggy. It was unreal really how boggy it was, and even the river crossings, they were quite low, but you were still getting your feet wet. I have had these for quite a while, and they did eventually fail again on day 12 when we was heading to Glencool Bothie. My feet were soaked, and these are going to go in the bin. I've only kept them to sort of do this video. But yeah, when I got home, I filled them up with water, and they're like a watering can now. So they're going to be going in the bin, and I'll get some new ones. I took 4 pairs of socks, or 5 pairs if you include them. So I took 3 pairs of Dawn Tough, and a lot of people said walk for half a day and then swap the socks out for a dry pair, which we did at the start. But when you put a dry pair on, you're putting your feet into wet shoes, and within 5 minutes those socks were wet. So you end up wearing a wet pair of socks and a wet pair of socks in your rucksack. So what I ended up doing was just wearing the same pair of socks all day, whether it was the waterproof ones or whether it was these. And in the hot weather that we had, they did dry out quite quickly. Whenever we stopped, we took the socks off, dried our feet out, our shoes dried out, and the socks dried out quite quickly. I only actually used 2 pairs, so I actually came back with a pair that I hadn't actually used. So I could have got away with just taking 2 pairs of darn tough. But I would recommend some decent socks on the Cape Wrath for definite. Underwear, I wore some Decathlon running shorts or boxers. I took 3 pairs, really lightweight, they wash well, dry very quickly, fold up quite small. So I took 3 pairs of them and swapped them out every few days. There are places to do laundry, so the first place was Morvick Campsite, so we did a wash there. Ullapool, we did another wash there. T-shirts, I took 3, and they are, that's another pair of underpants, boxer shorts. I took 2 short sleeved, and these are Montane Dart T-shirts. So I took 2 short sleeved, a red one and a blue one. And then I took another Dart one, but long sleeved. And I generally, again because of the weather, I generally wore the short sleeve ones. And again, I probably swap these out every 3 days. They wick the sweat away. They've got like an anti-pollutant on them, so you don't smell. Yeah, they're really, really good. I've had these for quite a while and they're still going strong. Bags that I took, which did come in handy. I took a bin liner, and a couple of times I would put my rucksack in it at night just to stop anything crawling into my rucksack, especially if we were in long grass. I also took it just in case one of my dry bags failed, especially the one that's got my sleeping bag in. So I did actually use that. I took a carrier bag. Don't ask me why, but I took a carrier bag, and it came in handy for carrying something home that I never talked about on the video, which I'll talk about later. So it came in handy for carrying that home. I also took a Ziploc bag, sort of A4 size, and any dirty clothes, t-shirts, socks went into this bag and then to the bottom of the rucksack. And then when we came to a campsite that had laundry, I just went to the laundry with my dirty clothes in that bag. So that came in handy. Okay, sleep system. I kept everything together that I was wearing in the tent at night, just so it was all together, just so it was all clean, and it was a bit more organised. So beanie hat, Montane beanie hat, wore that every night. Nemo Fillo pillow, which is I've had for ages. And it's quite a nice pillow actually. It does feel like a one that you have at home. Under Armour leggings. These are the heatwave ones, and I wish I'd have took my merino wool leggings. This is one of the things I wish I had took. When you've hiked for quite a long time and then you stop, your body's quite hot and then it starts to cool down. So obviously your muscles and everything are cooling down. And there was quite a few nights where my legs were cold. So I wish I hadn't took these, and I wish I'd have took my merino wool leggings instead. I took these as a bit of a weight saving. I think these are only like 100 grams, whereas my merino wool ones are like 200 grams. So yeah, I wish I'd have swapped them out for my merino wool ones. Another pair of socks, which I kept for sleeping in only. These are just a pair of Bridgedale hiking socks, merino wool ones to keep my feet warm. And then to go over my leggings, just to keep your manhood out of sight sort of thing when you're walking around campsites and towns, I just took a pair of Adidas shorts. Just so I didn't look like a ballet dancer wandering around. And this is another pair of gloves that I took. These are just merino wool liner gloves, and I did wear these a few times as well, especially in Bothies, because the Bothies were quite cold if there was no fire. So I did wear them quite a few times, little merino wool gloves. This was something new on the trip that I'd only bought a month before. It's basically a cheaper version of the Encore Plus hoodie, and this is made by Sports Direct. It's their version of it. It did well. It kept me warm, you know, at night. The hood's a little bit on the big side, but I was able to sort of walk around with it on around Liverpool and stuff, and it did keep me warm. Only £20. Downsides is it weighs nearly 300 grams, 260 grams I think it weighs, and it's not as packable as the Encore one, so it doesn't fold up as small, so it did take up a bit more room. But for £20 I was quite impressed with it, and it's come back, it's washed, and it'll probably go again on another trip. So the sleeping bag that I took was my summer sleeping bag that I've had for a while. If I can get it out of the bag. This just about kept me warm. It was borderline a couple of nights, especially if it was windy. And it's the Alpkit 400 Pipe Dream. It's a goose down bag. Alpkit rate it to -6, but there's no way it's -6. It's a couple of degrees above freezing, I reckon, the sort of the comfort limit on this. It is a good bag. I've always said it's not the best colour blue, because you always associate blue with as being cold. But most nights it was fine. The odd night I was cold. I probably could have done with a slightly warmer bag. And this is the challenge of the Cape Wrath being in Scotland. It was really hot and sunny during the day, and then it was just freezing at night. So it's, yeah, in an ideal world I'd have took a heavier bag, but then it's just making your rucksack even heavier. So yeah, like I say, that just about did what I needed it to do. So let's move on to, so that's everything out of the rucksack. No, it's not. I've not done the hip belt pockets, have I? I didn't put much in these. I took 2 pairs of reading glasses, which are foldable ones, just in case I broke a pair, but I didn't. I bought 2 back. And a pair of sunglasses, which I did actually wear quite a lot. From day one I had my sunglasses on, because it was quite sunny in Scotland. Even on the last day we had nice sunshine. You know, we did get lucky with the weather. And then in this side, oh, my water filter. I'm not showing you my water filter. Just a generic pack of hand wipes and a pack of the little leaves that you put on your hand. Put some water on them, you can wash your hands. Don't think I actually used them, but they don't really weigh much. And then my water filter, which I forgot to show you, is my Sawyer Squeeze, which is quite a common filter. We was filtering water every day, obviously, and because of the hot weather we were drinking plenty of water, and it you know, it did its job. It coped well. Okay, so that is everything out of the rucksack. So the clothes that I wore, so we'll start at the top. So I wore my Falraven baseball cap, which is now quite faded. Darren had like I think it was no, it wasn't Montane, it was Mountain Equipment hat that kind of covered his ears and the back of his neck. I wish I'd have took something like that. Because we were heading north, the sun was behind us every day. So I was getting burnt on the back of my neck and on the back of my ears wearing a baseball cap. So in hindsight, I'd have took a cap that was more like a hat, if you will, that covers your ears and stuff and your neck. This is the 3rd Dart base layer that you'll have seen me in if you've watched the video. Short sleeved one. The trousers that I wore were from Decathlon, and these are the Simond or Simond, however you want to pronounce it, trousers. I wore a pair on the Coast to Coast last year in a different colour, and I was that impressed with them that when I did the Cape Wrath Trail, I just bought a new pair to do the Cape Wrath in. There's a pocket at the front, so you got pockets either side. So I had, can't remember what I had in this one, but I had my phone in this one. I might have had a spare battery for the camera in this one. And then this one I put my glasses in, and then this other front one that's got press studs on it, that was where I had my snacks, to sort of pack of peanuts or Haribo's in the front snacks. There's a little zip on the back, another little pocket on the back, which I didn't really use. But they're really lightweight, they washed really well, so I was able to get them to clean. And the one thing I like about them, they've got like elasticated around the bottom, so I was able to cinch them up to hopefully stop anything crawling up my legs. If they got wet and then it stopped raining, they dried within minutes. And they were really, really good, really comfortable, only 35 quid. Yeah, definitely recommend them. And they've come back fine. I thought they might come back ripped or with a hole in them, but yeah, they've come back okay. The hoodie that I wore is a Montane one again. It's discontinued. It's called the Montane Venom hoodie. It's only a half zip, but it's got the elasticated hood. So when it was quite windy, I was able to put the hood over and stop me baseball cap flying off, and keep the wind off me, off the side of my face and my ears and everything. It worked quite well. I'm not really a lover of half zips. I prefer a full zip, but it worked quite well. And it's got the little thumb, so when you put it on, you can put your thumbs through the thumb loops. I think it's less than 300 grams, and it did all right. I wore it quite a lot in the morning, in the evening and stuff. I wore it some days throughout the day. I had the hood up quite a lot when we were going over the Belacs and everything. Yeah, I was quite impressed with that. I'm not too sure if they still do it. It might be discontinued now. But yeah, it was a good hoodie. So what did I wear on my feet? The all important question. A lot of people that we saw were wearing boots. There was only me, Darren, and another guy that we saw that was in trail runners. Because I've, like I said before, damaged my Achilles tendon years ago, I can't do long distance walks in boots because it flares up the tendon. So I wear trail runners. I just seem to be more suited to them. So these are Saucony Exos Ultra 4s. They're not waterproof. They're very lightweight, and they've got loads of cushioning in the heel and at the front as well. I did the Coast to Coast last year, and I wore a pair of Exos 3s, so the version before this, and the only difference is these have got the vibrant grip, whereas the 3s hadn't, and you could notice that extra grip. Really comfortable. They've got the little loop at the front and at the back if you want to put a gaiter on, a short gaiter. Yeah, I was really, really impressed with them. They've come back. They've got like a shield guard around the front, so they are designed for like ultra running through rugged terrain. Obviously, we were walking, we weren't running, and these have gone through rivers, bog, over mountain terrain, Belacs in all weathers, and you know they survived. The only negative I would say with trail runners, and what happened to these, and Darren's did the same, after about 11 days the grip went. The grip was gone on them. The upper lugs that are on them just wore out. There are a few road bits on the Cape Wrath, especially when you're going from Ullapool to Oikel Bridge. It's just basically 4x4 track and a lot of road section, and we think that's where we killed them. That's where they basically wore out and the tread went. But we didn't realise until day 12 in the pouring rain, descending down to Glencoe Bothy, and that's where we had no grip and we were just sliding around everywhere. But yeah, I prefer to hike long distance in trail runners, and if I was doing another long distance walk again, I would definitely get a pair of Saucony trail runners. No blisters, very, very comfortable. Put them on your feet and do your hike, forget about them, they didn't cause any problems. But like I say, most people wearing boots, but everybody got wet feet. So regardless of what you're wearing, you're going to get wet feet walking the Cape Wrath Trail. So that's it. So right, I'll have a bit of a tidy up and we'll come back and we'll chat about some advice and some tips now that I've done the Cape Wrath Trail. If you're thinking of doing the Cape Wrath Trail yourself, anything here, I will put links in the description, so they won't be affiliated links because I don't get anything off YouTube, but they'll just be a link so you can click on to Alpkit, say, or Leki, or whatever manufacturer, Montane, and you can look at the item. Obviously you can probably get it cheaper somewhere else. They're not affiliated links, like I say, so I don't get any sort of kickback or anything on, but it's just so you can click on the item and sort of read up on it and get some more information about it. So I'll do that when I've done this video. So right, I'll tidy up like I say, and then we'll have a quick chat and pass on some advice and some tips and some things that I do slightly different, a few little bits and bobs that I probably would take or wouldn't take, and then we'll round it up with my thoughts on the Cape Wrath Trail and that all important question, would I do it again? Right, okay, all cleared away. So let's get straight into the next part of the video. And this is my top 10 tips and a bit of advice to help you out if you're thinking of doing the Cape Wrath Trail yourself. Okay, tip number 1, plan, prepare and train. We spent over 6 months planning this walk. We didn't just turn up to Fort William and start walking. We started to plan the walk back in October of 2025, and the first thing to do was get time off work. We both booked 3 weeks off and we started to plan. By November that year, 2025, we booked the hotel room at Fort William. We kept looking on the booking.com app and we got a good deal on it, so we booked the room. February time, we booked the train tickets to Fort William. Again, we kept looking on the app, watching the prices, and sometimes you can just get a good deal where the tickets will be on offer. For the 6 months that we spent planning, we broke it down into 16 days because we knew that that's what we were going to do. From day one, we decided we didn't need a rest day, but we would put in maybe an afternoon, which is what we did at Ullapool. And we broke it down day by day, how far we were going to walk and where we were going to camp at the end of that day. That changed quite a lot after researching more and more about the Cape Wrath Trail, because 10 miles on the Cape Wrath Trail is a hard 10 miles. And if you've done other walks, it's probably like doing 15 or 20. For every mile on the Cape Wrath, some of them can be like 3 miles on a different trail because of the terrain, because of the remoteness and because of the elevation. Darren was the ideal partner to come with me on this trip. He wanted to do the trail as well. I know his background, I know his experience, and I knew how far he could walk every day because we've done numerous wild camps, we've done walks together in the past, and I've known him for a long time. So I knew that if I was going to do 15 mile, I knew that Darren would do the same. So we planned it meticulously. We put in get out routes if anything happened, if we was injured or we came across bad weather. You can't just exit some parts of the Cape Wrath. You have to commit for the next 2, maybe 3 days until you get to a village. And some villages are so remote, they might only have a local bus that comes once a week. So the get outs for us were Shield Bridge, which was day 5. After that, you're Strathcarron. You then move on to Ullapool and then Kinloch Burvey right at the end. Like I say, you can't just exit the trail if you decide that you don't want to do it anymore or you get injured. So once you get to these points, you've then got to commit to get to the next one pretty much. Strathcarron is the popular one because that's where the train station is. We also put in wet routes as well, so if we did experience bad weather, especially when we did the mountain section, We were only going to do that section if we had good weather. There's no way we were going to attempt it in bad weather. It was kind of pointless really. And for safety reasons, it just wasn't worth it. So we planned in a wet route from Strathcarron, which would cut the mountain section out and take us over to Craig and then down to Kinlochhew. And we did this on a few other days as well, because there are different ways that you can go on the Cape Wrath. So we did put in alternative routes, and we also put in extra points if we could get further that day, or if we didn't get as far that day. We made it so if we added mileage on to the next day, we were capable of doing that within our limits. There was a couple of hard days. Again, the mountain section was probably our toughest day that we did, but we knew it was going to be tough. But again, if you know your partner that you're going with, I knew that Darren was more than capable of doing that, and he knew the same, that I was capable of doing that. And I knew that he would get to the finish regardless. He's as stubborn as me, and the only thing that was going to stop us was injury or bad weather. We wanted to finish this trail. We didn't want to do it half-hearted, so we did put 6 months of our lives pretty much into planning for this. You need to prepare as well, mentally and physically, because it is a mental challenge. You're hiking day after day, lots and lots of miles, lots and lots of elevation, eating dried meals, sleeping in a little tent. Very, very remote terrain, very boggy. You've got wet feet pretty much every day. And in the hot weather, it was quite exhausting. You're drinking out of rivers and streams, or burns as they're known in Scotland. And you are in the wilderness. You're away from family for a long time, and there's no phone signal, so that can affect you as well. So you need to prepare yourself for this, both physically and mentally. Training wise, I'd only just finished the coast to coast in September last year, so I just kept my fitness going. I run a couple of times a week anyway, so I ran 3 times a week, a couple of 10Ks through the week and then a 10-mile run at the weekend. My job's quite physical, so that keeps me fit, and I'm often out hiking anyway in and around the Lake District, so I just kept my mountain fitness. It was a little bit harder for Darren because of his job, so what he did was, when he came home from work, he'd fill his rucksack up with bottles of water up to 10 kilos, put his head torch on, this was through the winter months, and he'd go and do a 10-mile walk. Sometimes he used to phone me around about 8 o'clock at night, and he'd be wandering around some fells near where he lives, questioning what he was doing. But it just shows the dedication that he put into doing this walk. Neither of us, like I say, wanted to fail. So you've got to commit, and you've got to put that planning in, that preparation in, and that training in. Get yourself as fit as you can, because there is a lot of elevation on the Cape Wrath Trail. Most days we were doing around 2,000, 2,500 feet of elevation. I think the lowest day we did was 1,000 feet, and the most we did was 4,500 feet. So prepare yourself and train for very long and sometimes hard days hiking. Okay, tip number 2, navigation. How do we navigate 230 miles across the Scottish Highlands? Well, it started with the guidebook. So we bought the Sisorian guidebook. There's lots of information in here about the Bothies, about shops, about trains, the taxi service that we used, and we basically followed the guidebook. There are alternative routes that you can do. You can veer off to different towns and different villages, but we just kept things simple and followed where the guidebook was telling us to go. I didn't take it with me because it weighs 200 grams and it's not waterproof, so it stayed at home. But any information that I needed on the trail, I took a picture on my phone, and then I had a copy of it with me. You're going to need north and south maps if you're doing the whole trail. These are 140 scale Harvey maps. I actually bought these second hand off a lad called Dean, so Dean, if you're watching, the maps went again. Because they were second hand, Dean had wrote in them places where he'd stayed, got resupply, river crossings where he'd camped, and all that information. It was invaluable. And then watching YouTube videos myself, I just added my own information. So every bridge that we came to, I would mark it on the map. I would mark all the Bothies. where we could get resupply from, things like that. And all the information you need to know is in these maps, but because the 140 scale, the detail isn't great on them. So we also had OS maps, which is 125 scale. So we downloaded a copy onto our phones. So each day, 1 to 16, we had the route plotted on our phones. Also, that information was transferred to the watches. So I've got the Phoenix 8, I think Darren's got the Phoenix 7. So every day we would have the watches on Navigate, and the watch would tell me to turn left, turn right, and I would keep checking the GPS to make sure that I was on course. Some days there'd be no path, and the navigation would, on the GPS, would tell you to go higher up, but it was too steep. Darren's sometimes was telling him to go too low, because on some days I had actually had the Highlands, Walking Highlands app, and there was a bit of conflicting information between OS maps, Walking Highlands, the Harvey maps and the guidebook, especially when you got to Glendessery. The guidebook and the maps tell you to go through or round the forest. We actually went through the forest. So that's one example that there was a bit of conflicting advice. So some days you just had to use your experience and sort of go in the easier way. There was another section when we did the mountain section. It was telling us to follow the river up, cross the river and then come back down again. We didn't see the point in doing that, so we just crossed the river when we got to the river. So yeah, you need good navigation skills, and you need the maps, OS maps I would advise to take, and I would also download the GPX files off Walking Highlands, especially for the pathless sections, because it's not an official trail. On some sections the OS maps don't actually put a path there. On some bits, because the Cape Wrath is now getting more popular, there has been a path that's worn in, and on some sections where it was saying there was no path, there was a path, but then on other sections when it was saying there was a path there was no path there. So you just had to keep checking the GPS, keep checking the maps, and hopefully you won't get lost, because if you get lost in the Scottish Highlands, you're going to end up in a world of trouble. So make sure you've got good navigation skills and all the information to take with you to keep you on track. Okay, tip number 3, fitness. You need a good level of fitness, especially mountain fitness. You need to be able to hike a lot of mileage every day. So some days, I think the least we did was 8 miles when we went to Glencoe Bothy. The most we did was about 20 miles. 20 miles on the Cape Wrath is hard, especially carrying a heavy rucksack, and especially in the hot weather that we had. So you do need to have a good mountain fitness to do this walk, and you need to be comfortable doing it. You're going to be hiking for miles and miles every day, and lots of elevation. It feels like you're going up all the time on the Cape Wrath. There isn't much down, and some sections are a lot tougher than others. The easiest day we had was probably going from Ullapool to Oikel Bridge. That was a 20-mile day or 21-mile day, following a 4x4 track all the way from Ullapool to Oikel Bridge. But then there was other days where we were going over Belax, and we were doing a lot of elevation and coming down the other side over mountain terrain. So you do need to have a good level of fitness to do this walk. Okay, tip number 4, and that's rubbish. There are no bins on the Cape Wrath Trail, so you've got to carry your rubbish with you. The first place you come to is Glenfinnan, where the visitors centre is, and you can get rid of some rubbish there, but this is day 2 for most people, so you haven't accumulated much rubbish by this point. After that, it's Shield Bridge, so we accumulated 4 days of rubbish. I took my snacks in Ziploc bags, as you've probably seen. So I had the rubbish in the previous bag's Ziploc bag and kept it in there. But by the time we got to Shield Bridge, where we got rid of our rubbish at Morvick campsite, we had 2 very full bags of rubbish. Sadly, when we got to the deerstalkers' hut, people had put rubbish underneath it, which isn't the right thing to do. It's not fair dumping your rubbish in the outdoors, and it's quite disgraceful of people doing that. When we got to places like Pitstop Calf and Kinsale Crafts, there was no bins outside. There was some bins around the back of Kinsale Craft, and there was signs up saying please do not put your rubbish in our bins. When we got to Shield Bridge, there was wheelie bins outside residential houses, and they actually had locks on them. Now, it's not Cape Wrath people, or not entirely Cape Wrath people. You are touching on places where the NC 500 passes through, especially Ullapool, and you get lots of people doing that route in camper vans or cycling or on motorbikes or whatever. And there's nowhere to get rid of your rubbish unless you're staying on a campsite. So even the residents have kind of got fed up with it, where they've actually had to put padlocks on wheelie bins to stop people filling up their rubbish. So bear it in mind when you're planning the trip. There are only a few places where you can get rid of your rubbish. So try and condense down things that you're taking with your food. Try and remove the outer packaging, stuff like that. And it'll just save you having to carry rubbish for days and days at a time. Okay, tip number 5. And this goes back to my poop kit. So believe it or not, there are toilets on the Cape Wrath Trail. The first one you come to is at the Visitors Centre at Glenfinnan, so you can use that one there. The next one you come to is not an official toilet, but it's a compostable one at a Chuli Bothie. I believe these are quite new this year, 2026. So that was day 2 for us. It's obviously a shed with the bottom cut out and a seat and a big hole that's been dug. The smell is not great, as you can imagine, and the sound of my number 2 leaving my body and landing on everybody else's 6 foot down is probably a sound I'll never get out of my head. It's not pleasant, but it's probably the toilet that's got the most spectacular views of the Glendessery. So if you ignore the smell, ignore the sound, forget about what you're doing and just enjoy the view while you're doing what you're doing. The next toilet you'll come to is another compostable one at Suley's Bothie. And then after that you've got a normal flushing toilet at Borrousdale Bothie. There's one at the campsite at Morvick obviously. And then it just continues. Every 2 days we were getting to somewhere where there was a toilet that you could use. So if you're like me and you don't go every day, you can wing it and not end up using your poop kit. Unlike Darren, he was going every day and he was having to dig holes. So I did manage to wing it, and I can proudly say that I didn't poo in a hole in Scotland. Okay, tip number 6, SOS. You need to take something in the form of an SOS device. The one that we had was the Garmin Instinct. Darren would set it going every morning. He would send a preset message to his wife. She would then reply. We would do the walk and we used it to navigate as well. So it was another way of navigation. If we were off course, it would bleep and let us know. If we were on course, it would bleep and let us know. When we got to camp, he would check in again and send another message to say we were all okay and this was our location. As I've said earlier, the Cape Wrath is very, very remote and you need some sort of SOS device. A lot of the sections have no phone signal, so there's no way of communicating with the outside world. And because of the remoteness, it could be a day or 2 before anyone comes along that path and finds you. So I would strongly recommend you don't do the Cape Wrath unless you've got some form of SOS device with you. Okay, tip number 7, food. There are places where you can resupply. The first one you'll come to is Kinsale Crafts. We took food to be a little bit more organised so that we had food for each day and we weren't relying on these places to restock. We knew that we were going to buy food in cafes and stuff as we went along, whether it was in a cafe or a hotel or a pub, because obviously it's good to support the local economy. Kinsale Crafts did sell food that you would buy, and we did buy food from there. We bought some Mars bars, some Haribos, peanuts, that type of thing. I think Darren bought a couple of cans of beer that he had at the campsite that night. I bought myself a couple of cans of pop. I wouldn't say it was somewhere where you could buy 5 days worth of food to resupply for the next 5 days, 6 days or whatever, but to me it was more of a place where you could get a slight restock, or you could just top up on your supplies, or like we did, we just bought bits of random food that we then took to the campsite and ate. There are other places like the Strathcarron Hotel. We went in there and we had some food in there. We stayed at the Oikle Bridge Hotel, so obviously we had food there. Ullapool was a great resupply place. There's a big Tesco's there and there's lots of shops. But as we found when we got there, all the shops were closing at 3:30. So we only just about made it for our fish and chips that we had. But then we went into the Tesco's and that sold pretty much everything. So we was able to get a few random bits and bobs in there. There's also an outdoor shop there. So we was able to buy gas and pick up some gas there. So there are places along the trail where you can get food. It depends on your dietary needs. It depends, you know, whether you're vegan or vegetarian, depending on what you want. Obviously some of the shops we went in, the prices were a little bit inflated. I just wanted to be a little bit more organised. So we had food with us. If we didn't get to a cafe in time or a shop and it was shut, we had food to fall back on. But if we could buy food, we did, and support the local economy as well. Okay, tip number 8. We actually stayed in 3 bothies. Mulberweed Bothy, Glendew Bothy, and the one I can never pronounce, so again I'll put it on screen. And it was a great experience. It's the first time we've both ever stayed in bothies, and the general rule is it's first come, first serve. The one thing you've got to bear in mind that you're not always guaranteed wood to get the fire going. In the first one we stayed in, Mulberweed Bothy, there was some wood there, so we was able to burn that and get a fire going, and some of the people that were staying there came into the room that we were in and we had good conversation. The one that I can't pronounce, there was some people that had left all their stuff there. They'd gone for a hike, they came back and they'd bought wood and everything, and they had food and stuff, so they invited us in, so that was a good night in there. Glencool Bothy, again, there was a father and son and his mates. They'd actually kayaked into that cove and they had coal with them and wood and various other bits and bobs and stuff, so they were staying there for a few days. And it was just a great atmosphere staying in these bothies. The only downside to staying in a bothy is obviously someone can turn up at 10 o'clock at night and wake everybody up, which is what happened at Mulberweed Bothy. Everyone had pretty much gone to sleep and somebody turned up at about 10:15 and woke everybody up. They then left very early that morning around 5:30 and did the same, woke everybody up. So if you are staying in a bothy, just bear in mind that somebody may turn up once you've got settled, once you've got to sleep. But it was a great experience and we did have good conversation and met some great people in them. So yeah, I would recommend staying in a bothy in Scotland. Okay, tip number 9, and this is probably just a bit of advice on one. It's not a necessity, but it's something I would consider doing, and that is outdoor first aid. I've got level 3 outdoor first aid because I take kids out into the wilderness, camping, hiking, teach them how to read maps, set up camp, how to use transiers, that sort of stuff. So I have a level 3 outdoor first aid qualification. I would recommend doing something similar, probably not as high a level, but even if you watch some YouTube videos on how to remove ticks from yourself, how to deal with blisters and how to drain blisters, how to spot signs of dehydration or sunstroke, things like that, how to deal with small wounds, because you are going to be out for quite a long time, either on your own or with your partner. So if something happens where you need to sort out a wound or a cut, or you find you've got a tick on yourself and you need to remove that tick, so some sort of first aid training I would recommend, just in case anything happens, you twist an ankle or something like that, because again, this is the outdoors, it's not man-made, and there are lots of rocks and boulders and trees and all sorts to keep climbing over, lots of bog and everything that you're wading through. How to deal with trench foot and spotting the signs early before it becomes too late and you have to sadly leave the trail because of an infected blister, or an injury or an open wound that gets infected. So it's not a necessity, but I would recommend doing some sort of very basic outdoor first aid course so that if something does happen, you can deal with it whilst you're out on the trail and it's not going to stop you from continuing on the trail. Okay, so tip number 10, things I would do differently. There isn't many. I think the main one is the days that we did the walk. We did it over 16 days, which is the way we planned it. We did have one extra day in case we got bad weather, or we were stuck trying to get across a river. As it happened, if you've seen the video, our river crossings were quite low. We were in Scotland for a total of 18 days, so 16 days on the trail, a day to get there, a day to get back. Some days it did feel like we were leaving camp, we were hiking all day, setting up camp, having some food, a bit to camera, and then we were going to sleep. We didn't get that time off the trail. The only time that we had off the trail was when we got to Ullapool, where we had an afternoon off. We didn't plan in a rest day or a 0 day, which a lot of people did that we met. So I think if I was going to do the walk again, I would do it over a longer period of time and break up a couple of those days, especially day 2 when we went from Conaglen to a Bothie. That was a 19-mile day and that was tough. So if I was going to do the walk again, I would probably break some of the days down into slightly shorter days and do it over a longer period of time, maybe 18 or 20 days to do the walk, and just give you a little bit more time when you get to camp just to chill out a little bit, put your feet up, or maybe even go off trail, go and see something that's in the area, go around the shops, something like that, just to get your head off the Cape Wrath Trail just for a little bit and just to relax and chill out, because like I say, it did feel some days like we were just hiking along and trying to keep to that itinerary that we'd planned. So yeah, that's one of the things I would definitely do differently. Equipment wise, everything worked, nothing failed, but we did take a long time planning and deciding what gear to take. The only one thing that I would swap out, which is what I said earlier, is the Under Armour leggings, and definitely swap them out for some merino wool leggings and the merino wool top that I didn't take also. My legs were just cold at night. Once my muscles had cooled down, my legs were quite chilly in the sleeping bag. So for a little bit extra weight, I would definitely take some merino wool clothing because it was quite chilly at night in the tent. The other thing that I would take, that a lot of people did take, that I saw hanging off the rucksacks, might sound a bit silly, but a pair of good old-fashioned Crocs. These would have really come in handy, especially when you get to camp. Your socks are wet, your trainers are wet. It would have been nice to put a pair of Crocs on and wander around with a pair of Crocs, because if you're walking around in bare feet, which is what I did on some camps, you're going to get ticks in between your toes and latching onto you. It would have been nice as well to sort of stand into a river and cool your feet down. And even when we were in the Bothies as well, the Bothie floors were obviously quite dirty, so you couldn't walk around in socks or bare feet, so you had to keep your wet shoes on. So yeah, a pair of Crocs, as daft as it might sound, would have been quite ideal to take on the Cape Wrath Trail. Apart from that, I think the gear that we took worked well. Like I say, maybe a slightly warmer sleeping bag, but I think with the merino wool leggings and top, that would have compensated for that, and I would have been a little bit more snug at night. So that's it, that's my top 10 tips. So let's move on to one thing I didn't talk about on the Cape Wrath Trail. And that one thing is my deer antler. I found this on the stretch from Oikel Bridge to Inchnadamh Lodge. It was by the side of the trail, just sat there, and I picked it up. I was quite impressed that I'd found a deer antler because we'd been looking for them all along the trail. It got strapped to my rucksack, and that was about it. I forgot about it. Every time I got to camp and I did a bit to camera, I kept thinking I'll mention the deer antler, but I never did. And like I say, it just got strapped to the side of my rucksack. On some footage you can actually see it on the side of my rucksack. There is an opening shot when we left Inchnadanth Lodge. Darren acquired one as well, so he had his on top of his rucksack. Mine was on the side, and as we walked past camera, yeah, we've both got deer antlers strapped to our rucksacks. But yeah, a great souvenir to bring back, which is where the carrier bag came in handy, which is what I showed you before. There's a nice little shot of us leaving when we get to Inverness train station. If you've watched the video where I do how to leave Cape Wrath, of us both with carrier bags, and we both had deer antlers in the carrier bags, which nobody knew, only me and Darren. So yeah, it's quite a funny closing shot, that. But yeah, the only reason I didn't speak about it was because I simply forgot about it. Okay, so my final thoughts on the Cape Wrath Trail. It is an amazing walk, it really is, in stunning Scottish scenery. Scotland is an amazing country, and if you've never been, I strongly advise that you go. It is just fantastic, and Scottish people are just amazing as well. But it is a tough walk, and it is a walk you need to take seriously. You need the skills to do it, so you need the experience. So I wouldn't recommend this as your first through hike, your second, third, maybe even fourth through hike. I would get some experience, get to know yourself and build your gear up, get to know the gear that you're going to be taking with you. You need a good fitness level, like I've said, and you need good navigation skills. Sadly, people have died on the Cape Wrath Trail because it is a serious route. It is very, very remote, and some days you will see nobody. One of the quotes from Billy Connolly, who's one of the Scottish comedians, he said that Scotland is a beautiful country, but there's miles and miles of nobody, and that's exactly how it is. Some days we saw nobody, literally nobody, until we got to a Bothie or until we came into a village. So plan it well, train well, know what you're doing if you're taking on the Cape Wrath Trail. Okay, so the question that a lot of people have been asking me, would I do the Cape Wrath Trail again? Would I put myself through all that again? 16 days or more of hiking, crossing rivers, bivouacs, a couple of days of being soaked with the Scottish weather, cold at night, ticks, sunny weather, being burnt in the sun, remoteness. Would I put myself through all that again? And the answer to this question I kind of knew probably the first few days I started the walk, and it is 100% yes, I would definitely do the Cape Wrath Trail again. It was, like I say, it was just a fantastic walk, and Scotland is just an amazing place. If I was to design a walk, it would be the Cape Wrath Trail. The people that we met along the way were fantastic. The experiences that we had in the Bothies, it was just fantastic. So I do plan to do the Cape Wrath Trail again. I don't know whether I'm going to do it in reverse or whether just do a slightly different version of it. It won't be next year or probably the year after. I've got a big birthday coming up in the next couple of years, so it could be then. But yes, I will do the Cape Wrath Trail again because I absolutely loved it. So sorry for waffling on. It's probably going to be a really long video, this, but there's a lot of information there that hopefully will be of help or useful to someone if you're going to be doing the Cape Wrath Trail again. Like I say, plan it well, prepare, train, and you're going to have an absolute amazing experience because the Cape Wrath Trail is just a very, very special walk. So thanks for watching, and as always, I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.